Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The brand new OpTic Texas team has talked for the first time about exactly why they made such significant changes over the off-season, with Dashy implying that lack of accountability and even from some perspectives some excuses occurring in practice were the reasons why they decided to make a change. Pretty much implying the relationship with Ghosty was not how it seemed at times, and realising why Kenny may well be the better option for this roster. Very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. First of all, wanted to mention this. So Ludwig confirmed yesterday that he's doing this like who's the GOAT gamer thing, basically, where invite a load of players and play, I'm imagining, all sorts of different games, some fighting games, some FPS games, all sorts of stuff, to see across all things who actually is the best gamer in the world. Now, I think that we have some decent candidates here in the Call of Duty world that would be good at a lot of different things. And this might be, we don't know if Scum's actually involved, but this might be what Ludwig was talking about a couple of weeks ago now, where he tweeted out at Scump like, hey, can you DM me about this? Because I'm sure he'd like to have Scump going along. So 2nd and 3rd of September. So maybe we'll see Scump involved in this. Who would you nominate? If you had to nominate someone from a past or present CDL pro, I think that of the present ones, Dashy's definitely up there. There's a lot of players that are just ridiculously good at like every game they pick up. Dashy is, I think, one of them. If you had to say, like, all time, I would probably nominate Karma, actually, because for whatever reason, Karma is just insane at every single game that he plays. Not even just FPSs, like, just everything he's good at. And he's especially good when he's just started playing the game. So, I don't know. If I had to nominate someone from the continent, I think I'd nominate Karma. Not sure he would actually go or do it, but I don't know. I think that would be interesting to see nonetheless. So, looking forward to seeing how that one develops over the coming days. Quickly on a couple of different rosters as well. Boston confirmed what's going on there. Well, of course, we knew it already, but this is the announcement they've done. No crazy special content that OpTic are doing, and honestly, I think some of the OpTic content with this team is going to be fire, because the episode they released yesterday, this game chat podcast, it's some of the best content they do, and hopefully more of it to come. I know that a lot of those guys are going away. Kenny's going, I think he's going out with Donny Temp to Japan for a while, and Pred's doing his like big tour of Europe. I think he just got to Turkey today, possibly. So, you know, a lot going on there. They obviously recorded this episode quite a few days ago, but we'll get into it in a second. Do wonder whether Rokkr are preparing an announcement as well, because to my understanding, Thieves, their roster is now pretty much locked in. I'm not sure if it's the same as what was leaked or whether Zuma was correct that they're seeing some changes, but I'm pretty sure Thieves at least have decided what they're doing and probably locked in some contracts, quite possibly for Ghosty actually, and we'll talk about him in a second. Rokkr as well, we had some rumours about, and they say, seeing a lot of roster talk on the timeline, to me an announcement they're coming soon. Now, Attach replies, and this is interesting because Attach isn't in their rumoured team, as it stands, right? It's meant to be Accuracy, Awakening, Lins, and Vivid, which is a strange team in some respects, and especially when Attach is going to be gone. And it's like, where's Attach going elsewhere? Okay, he might go to Surge. Surge is like the only other organization right now that these players would want to join. I don't necessarily know if you want to go to Los Angeles Guerrillas, especially given their organizational question marks. And you don't really want to go to Vegas, London, or Florida generally. And Florida probably have their own different ideas with the Spanish thing that they might still be trying to do. So, yeah, not exactly sure what Attach is going to do. Surprising that he's had, less rumors around him than you might have expected. Pretty much nothing to that effect, to be honest. Some are hoping for and expecting maybe some sort of Clayster Attach reunion, which would be nice. I don't know if it's going to work that well in the year 2023, but who knows, right? But what organization would that be on? Maybe Surge, but then Surge wouldn't be getting aBeZy, and we think they probably will try and do that. So I'm a bit confused exactly what's happening here, but possibly Rokkr will confirm their roster shortly. And we haven't seen any updates here from JKL that this has changed from the Rokkr side, and I don't think there'll be so much interest in these players elsewhere that they'll get poached away last minute. So this is probably a pretty decent estimate for what we're going to see over the coming days. Let's talk about the OpTic situation then. So Pred joins the team. He was doing a bit of streaming, right? Hexa, he put him up on FaceTime, whatever, just to show you the stream, and has been given some gas absolutely for his teammates, right? Look, he gassed his teammates up previously when he was on Surge, but the caliber of teammates he has now compared to on Seattle Surge are a rather different breed. Now, what we did have yesterday was this game chat episode, and like, I'll link the entire thing, of course, down for you you guys below. But and this was done, I'm pretty sure, on the same day as the other announcements, right? Because I think they did all the content on one day. We can see Shotzzy wearing that same shirt, Dashy wearing the same shirt. So, you know, I guess it makes sense, right, that they all sat down there. They did all the announcement stuff. They sat down and did the Wingstop things, and then they did this podcast episode as well. And these, when they've done these before with their teams, are always great stuff. They need to do this more often, to be honest, because it's just fantastic content. So they run through a load of interesting topics, and we'll talk about even more of them later on today. But one of the interesting ones that Shotzzy says is kind of funny, because Shotzi's like, look, how did we form this roster? And Dashy's like, well, you know, Hex kind of gave us the green light to make some changes. And then Shotzzy says, do we want to talk about why we made these decisions? And like, Shotzzy just basically just says, Dashy, tell them why we dropped Ghosty, is pretty much what he's implying. And Shotzzy's like, oh, you know, you don't have to say if you don't want to. But Dashy does give some insight to him, and it's interesting to mention just because we knew in the early part of Rostermania something had gone down between Dashy and Ghosty, or those two didn't get on as well as maybe we thought that they did. There was a lot of optimism during the season, especially towards the ends, that maybe it would just be straight up minus Hook plus Pred, go for that upgrade theoretically, and that'll be the way to go. But that's not what they did. They dropped Ghosty as well, and definitely controversial, right? And I've got to say that there'll be many OpTic fans out there that are hearing this from Dashy and saying, oh yeah, bang on the money, Dashy. Like, yeah, Ghosty was a problematic teammate. I'm glad we're rid of him. But a month ago, they were saying that OpTic are making a big mistake to get rid of Ghosty, right? So there's probably a bit of both going on, but this is what Dashy has to say.
Because like I feel like no one ever really talks about it. I'm not sure if you're comfortable with it, but like, what do you? Why do you think we made this change? Like, is there any like little thing like?
Oh, wait, like our team right now?
Because I'm saying like, you know how like no one ever says some shit.
Yeah.
But like, would you ever like say the reasoning or not?
I feel like just to keep it short. I mean, like if for me it was more like everyday practice, just going like, this is gonna sound insane from coming from me because people are like, there ain't no way it's coming from him, but like just going hard as and then just like having accountability, because I feel like on like if some days we'd get on and then there'd just be an insane excuse for why we're not going hard, or why we're just chalking like a set, or we're not going hard against X team because we're smoking them or whatever, like just like little shit that was like
just add it up.
Yeah, but I think like after a while, like I don't know, I think we just
Here's my question. Would you say like the back-to-back second place was like hit? Like getting second place twice?
Yeah,
like,
how would that
like
would that
did like
yeah.
Like it definitely
that would have felt insane.
It was definitely annoying, but I don't think it I think it was what it
I think
we just got
I think like I think like I guess that did like have an effect, because like our practice afterwards were like
we were just like it was a practice with an ego, you know what I'm saying? Oh, like these guys are ass. Or
I feel like when you come second like that, you probably just want to fast forward, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't realize like how much you guys work to get into that situation. So like when you come second, you're like, oh man, like you lose full, and you just like you just want to get to the tournament and fast forward to the finals.
Because we're farming in scrims, like, you know what I'm saying? So it's
we know.
If you've seen our shit, dude, it's insane.
Yeah, I mean, I know.
They were just like a.
I remember when we woke up. I think Ant asked me, he's like, "Yo, you want to play for money?" I'm like, "Hell no, I'm not playing you guys for money." But you guys were rinsing, like.
Yeah.
No, I asked.
That's why I tip Zach. Every time. I'm like, sure.
I'm like, Zach, it's been 42 days. It's been 42 days when we beat them in the map, and you still want to play them.
He's like, hell yeah, double down.
But we have yet to beat them in one map.
I'm like, Zach, we down? You down? I'm like, this motherfucker got cash.
So I guess theoretically he could be talking about either of the two players they got rid of, either Ghosty or Hook. But, you know, do we really buy that Hook's the one having lack of accountability and making all these excuses? I don't really think so. It's more likely to be Ghosty, but if you watch Ghosty's streams and stuff like this, he's a personality that can, you know, make excuses and to this effect. Now, in fairness, their scrims were obviously pretty godlike, right? And even Kenny said, I thought it was crazy, I cannot believe this is true, that they didn't win a map, LA Thieves against OpTic, for 42 days. They obviously weren't scrimming every day, but still, every time you play a scrim set, you're playing, what, like 8-9 maps of scrim sets? So to lose all of them again and again for weeks on end is just remarkable. Surely they must have won a couple in there. There's no way OpTic won every single map against them. But Kenny was like, you know, Drazah still wanted to put money on the line for these scrims to make it more, you know, engaging, right? And to make sure the teams are going harder, and just were pissing money down the drain basically by playing OpTic in scrims and losing all of them anyway. So it's crazy how good OpTic were in practice. But as Dashy's saying, the accountability, let's say they did have a bad day of scrims, or they made some mistakes and it wasn't working for them that day for whatever reason, then like there was, from his perspective, his teammates. And we can probably imply he's talking about Ghosty here, given that he relates this to why they made the change in the first place, was maybe making some excuses. And it means when you go to a LAN environment, when every team is really kicking up to the maximum level, yes, you might be winning most of your scrims, but if you're not learning as much as you need to, it's going to cost you at the big events. And potentially we saw that with OpTic when they turned up to Major 5 and got blown out of the tournament, and the World Championship wasn't particularly pretty either. So of course, Dashy did have to clarify to some degree that people are going to say, oh, well, you know, of course, Dashy's talking about accountability and not going hard in practice because, you know, he's been guilty of that in the past, which may well be true. But it does seem like nowadays Dashy is a changed man to some extent, and hopefully that'll maintain the way that it is, because Dashy, like, in some sense, his talent deserves more championships than he has, and I think this is a good attitude for him to have. But it's interesting looking at the Ghosty side, because this was the talking point right after Champs. This was on the 1st of July, actually, that we saw this tweet from OpTic Intel saying that for multiple credible people, Dan and Brandon, Ghosty and Dashy didn't get along, and over the coming days we saw some further indications this was the case, and of course eventually they released him from the roster entirely. Now, does this mean that Ghosty was a massive force for negative on the team? I don't think so. Ghosty clearly did great things for this roster, because without him, I don't think they get the success that they had. But to some degree, there was probably something valid in what Dashy's saying here, and they believe that the right decision was to go down a different route and get Kenny instead. That's not to say that Ghosty can't still be a great player elsewhere, and given he's a rookie and he was only around a couple of months, you can understand that maybe from a personality winning perspective, Ghosty might not be quite up to speed with what the other players thought at that time. So, look, probably work to be done on both sides here. But I think it's interesting how quickly the narrative can shift, because before we saw anything about this from OpTic, and before we really heard about that there was friction internally, the prevailing wisdom was, oh, you got to keep Ghosty around. He was absolutely instrumental, which he was, to turning that team around and getting the success they had. Some success. Okay, back-to-back grand finals is impressive, but it's not a victory, so it always does, like, drop down the pecking order a little bit. But nonetheless, right, Ghosty did great things for the roster, and everyone seemed to think, well, keep Ghosty around, get rid of Hook for Pred if you want to, depending on how Champs goes. But usually a two-man change is quite often necessary after especially back-to-back poor performances at Major 5 and Champs. And when Ghosty was gone, many said, what are they doing, right? Ghosty should be the man. Whereas now Dashy explains it a bit more, and everyone seems to say, oh yeah, this Ghosty guy, like, it was ruining the chemistry. And I'm like, well, you know, you can't have it both ways in some respects. So it would be interesting to hear Ghosty's perspective on this, how he saw their practice, because maybe he thinks, well, we're absolutely fine in scrims, like, that wasn't the issue with what was going on. But yeah, Dashy says some degree of lack of accountability and making excuses were the issues they're running into. So it does make things even more interesting if Ghosty goes to Thieves, because yes, Thieves on paper won't have the most competitive roster this year compared to the theoretical top 4, but they still should be there or thereabouts, probably in the top 6 range, I would say, based on the team that they seem to be presently forming, and Ghosty's meant to be there. So, okay, Ghosty, I'm sure, knows that he's got room for improvement in his gameplay, and also probably in the way that he acts in and outside of the game, but, Thieves are going to be pretty competitive, I would say, with that roster, and there will be some good matches between that team and OpTic, I would imagine, going forwards. I also will just quickly mention before we close out here from Kennedy, thought was quite interesting. She put together her analysis on how the old OpTic is going to relate to the new OpTic. And based on performances from last season, the new OpTic won't be as good. But I think, you know, it's obviously difficult to do the analysis here, because this is based on how the players played last season, looking at engagement numbers, KD, and stuff like this, and comparing it to the current OpTic and how they played. But very slang heavy team, which is absolutely true, but this kind of doesn't necessarily take into account the nuance that the players, especially of this caliber, can change their playstyle, change their ability, change the way they're interacting with their teammates to make the team as good as possible. So I've got confidence this new OpTic is going to be better, but by the numbers, it's not so clear that that's necessarily going to be the case. But very much intrigued to your thoughts and all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.